Please stop creating generic portfolio projects. Hiring managers actually want to see if you can solve real-world problems and not just push pixels. In this video, let's make a check if your portfolio projects make business sense and what to do with them if they not. My name is Ines, my channel is about UX design. Subscribe. But before we start, please don't worry that much if you will find out that the projects that you have in your portfolio don't make business sense, in my opinion. That happens actually more often than not, and we're going to discuss as well why this is the case. But there are some ways how you can improve the perception of those projects, although you might not be able to save all the projects. But please don't worry that much, almost everything is fixable. Now let's see, what is a business sense in UX design? The point is that your portfolio projects have to be deeply rooted in people needs and to solve real world problems. And also, by choosing projects to showcase in your portfolio, you can actually demonstrate that you know which problems need to be solved and which don't. So let's review an example that will demonstrate what I mean. Imagine that you are living in Berlin and you only speak English, you don't really speak any German. And you have encountered the problem that finding an English-speaking nanny for your kids is really a challenge. And all of your friends and colleagues, they complain about this, so you think that maybe creating a project like that for your portfolio might be a good idea. If you were to start working on this project, you would likely do the following. First, you would conduct a competitive analysis, you would analyze the apps for German speakers and maybe apps from some other countries. Then you would probably notice similarities, differences, will list down the best practices, and then you will start creating the flows, the information architecture, and then finally prototypes, and eventually you will have a nicely branded, really appealing app for English speakers who would love to find a nanny. And you might ask, well, okay, what's wrong with that? This seems like a very feasible idea, many people complain, and this is the real problem that I personally have. So what's wrong? And the process is also very up to the point, meaning the design process that I do. But from a perspective of a hiring manager, you actually solved zero business problems. Because to solve business problems, you need to have a business. And you might say, yeah, Ines, it's very clear to solve business problems, I need to have a business around that, but I don't have a job, so what can I do? But if you think about that, there are plenty of real, actual businesses around you that are struggling. They have plenty of UX problems. They have many unexplored areas, and you actually don't need anyone's permission to start solving those problems. Take YouTube, for example, and if you will spend some time analyzing what do they have, you will spot many inconsistencies. And moreover, if you do competitive analysis, you will find out that there are many competitors that have features that YouTube don't have. For example, if you look at Twitch, that they have a lot of engaging interactions between users and streamers, and YouTube is actually pretty boring when it comes to streaming. So a good idea for a project that makes business sense is something like that, because you will have a business, a real business which you are designing for. And it does not really matter that you are not employed by this business, it's the details. You will have the design system around, you will have some constraints, you will have competitors to look up to, and you will have to be really diligent in how you will integrate the feature that you want in the existing ecosystem. And guess what? 99% of work as a UX designer, you will do exactly that. You will be improving products that you are working for. You will not be creating apps from the scratch, at least not always. It is actually pretty rare if you start as a founding designer in a startup and you will have to create the product from scratch when you are a junior UX designer. And I might even say that if you find a job like that when you are just starting, you will not be set to success because it's highly challenging. But anyways, this is exactly what I mean when I talk about projects that make business sense. You might be worried now that it's really hard to find an idea like that, but first of all, there are a lot of ideas once you will start looking on the product that you use from a perspective of a UX designer. Second, you can use ChatGPT, you can use different models to brainstorm those ideas, and usually actually competitors, they give you enough ideas already. Third, and actually this is a very important point, this is the work that you will be doing all the time at a company. So it might make sense to start warming up your mind, to create your creative techniques about how you can find problems like that. And also, it is really not that complex. In the UX Portfolio Club, we do those exercises regularly, and there are people who find those projects all the time. All the time it is successful, all the time the project is unique and interesting. If you want my guidance and if you want to participate in the UX Portfolio Club, the link will be down below. And let me know if you want a video from me about how exactly do we do this, what steps do we take, because after having this club for half a year already, I think I have developed a really nice methodology that works all the time. It is very predictable and people enjoy using it. By the way, if you like this video and you want to receive more videos like that, give me thumbs up and hit the subscribe button down below. That's important for me and for YouTube algorithms. And we are moving on. Now, what to do if you have just found out that all projects in your portfolio, they don't have business sense in the way how I mean it, and they are more or less like this nanny finding app. As I said, it's not a disaster yet. We need to see to the details. And also, you might be righteously wondering why your bootcamp programs gave you these tasks if they don't have business sense. What is it? Is it I'm wrong and they are right? Is it a plot or something? And actually, no, giving students the projects like that, creating a nanny finding app in the beginning is a very good idea, because when you don't have any constraints, you can solely focus on UI design, on user flows, you can study best practices, you can really take the best out of those best practices and use it in your designs. Because in the real world apps, like even if you know that this is the best practice there, you might not be able to implement that because it will require a huge rehauling of the whole ecosystem, and that's why you decide on a compromise, and there are a lot of compromises like that. But hey, this is actually the real life, the real business experience, and nothing is ideal. But when you are studying, you don't really need this friction just yet, because you need to first learn these best practices and just overall improve your UI, improve user flows and things like that. So when bootcamp creators, they give you these projects, they actually do well, they mean well. It's just those projects, they are meant to be projects where you just study, where you make mistakes, and not actually projects that you place in your portfolio afterwards. Because think about that, if you were a cook and you want to apply for a very nice fancy restaurant in Paris, and you will have to cook a lot of things, you will have to do a lot of trial and error until you land on a recipe, on the technique that you can then place in your portfolio and really offer to restaurants, chef, in order to be hired. I don't really know if that makes sense because I've never been a cook in my life. I don't really like cooking, but you hopefully get the idea. So of course it's tempting to place the projects that you do while you're studying right in the portfolio, and usually bootcamps, they advertise the programs like that, so you will have a job-ready portfolio, but it's unfortunately just not the case. But luckily there are techniques that you can use to improve those projects. As I said, you might not be able to save them completely, because a project that is done for a real product would always be ranked higher than a project for a generic app. But if you will consider that this is just a UI exercise, a user flow building exercise, you can start positioning it in this angle. What do I mean? Real-world apps and products, they are often not ideal, as I said. And that's why if you have their imperfect UI design, maybe some confusing flows, maybe some compromises, that is all more or less okay, provided that you have a story around that and you explain really well why this compromise was necessary. But for purely fictional projects like Nanny Finding app, you have no excuses to have bad UI and confusing user flows. Because you have no constraints, you can go wild, you can really explore best practices, as I said, really nice experiments, and really make it stand out from the visual point of view. Because there is no real value in the business problem that you solve. Place emphasis all possible emphasis on the UI and the visual part. Tactically, that means that you will have to create animations, you will have to refactor your UI design if that's necessary. You will have to make them really appealing, you will have to have branding, you will have to show that you are capable of doing the most fantastic work that is possible for you as of today. So consider those projects to be like a playground, like projects where you show everything you are possible to do. And hiring managers will review them exactly from this perspective. Okay, you did not have any constraints, but you also did not have any business problem that I could assess because you don't have users and things like that. But I can assess how can you execute in a pure context. And this is also actually pretty valuable to know, because there are other weight of the spectrum. There are sometimes people who were able to find a job as a junior or as an intern designer in a big tech company, and then they were able to build their portfolio based on actual products right away. But because those products, they are very incremental, they have a lot of constraints, a lot of alignments were needed to create them, and that's why they had a lot of compromises. It's also hard to assess if this person can really perform on a different level. So technically, if you only have real projects in your portfolio and they are full of compromises, as I said, it might also not be ideal, and you might need to create a purely fictional project just to balance it out. So really review those projects from the perspective of your level of execution. Is it the most impressive thing that you can demonstrate as of today? And if you have one project like that in your portfolio, it's completely fine, because this is, as I said, where you show what you are capable of in a pure vacuum with no constraints. If you have two projects like that, this is where I would start worrying, considering if you have other projects to balance them out, because two, it might be too much, because I have seen what you are capable of in one project. The second project would probably be the same, more or less. So it could only work if one project is a consumer-facing project with a lot of UI, animations, like some mascots and branding. And the other project is for a B2B product where everything is muted, everything is subtle, the UI is subtle, and you more or less show that you can work in both ecosystems. Something like that. But in other cases, having two fictional projects might not be ideal. So definitely think about where you are and if you can balance this in one way or another. If you have a lot of projects that are fictional projects, just make sure that you have some number of projects that are projects for real companies. But anyway, at least one nicely done project for a real business, for a real product, where you might not be employed there just yet, will be needed for any junior portfolio. But luckily that's not it. There is one more thing that you can do to make your fictional projects to look more or less on the next level. It's adding usability tests. The thing is that I perfectly know how UX bootcamps, they teach their students. The programs are very long and people usually start with a lot of motivation and they do everything that is required, but closer to the end of the project, people sometimes lose steam and they actually fake the part with usability tests or just skip it altogether and just work on finalizing designs, because there is always a deadline in UX bootcamps that they want you to comply with. So if that's your case, this is actually good, because you have opportunity to improve this project. If you will go and actually try to talk with real people, showing them your designs, this could already show that, first of all, you can do usability tests. Second, you know they're important and we cannot skip them, even if we were using all the best practices. Sometimes it is important, and especially it is important when the project is brand new. And third, you will add some frictions because users, they will tell you what they think, they will be comparing you with some other products that they use and they might not be happy, and you will eventually have to improve your designs and they will also become more realistic. So I definitely recommend you to add this step or highlighting this step in your portfolio if you have missed it, or if it is just one line and then you go straight to visual designs. It will help your project look more realistic, and although it will not be as equal as a project for a company that has real users, it will show your toolkit if you want. And that was it for today. I hope now you know how to assess if the projects you have in your portfolio make business sense and what to do with them if they're not. And if you like this video and you want to receive more videos like that, hit the subscribe button down below and click the bell. This way you will get a notification when a new video comes out. And I see you next time.